highway. As you can see, people leaving southern Lebanon. There is a mass exodus. You look to your right, you look to your left, smoke. These are Israeli airstrikes.
Israel has launched a barrage of airstrikes across Lebanon, and they've killed more than 490 people and hurt more than 1,000 others. This was the deadliest day of conflict in Lebanon since 2006.
Fearing an outbreak of a larger regional conflict, the Pentagon says it will send additional U.S. troops to the Middle East. Israel says its warplane struck 1,300 Hezbollah targets, attacking what it says are caches of weapons, including rockets and drones. The IDF claims the weapons are inside residential buildings embedded among civilians. Lebanon's health ministry says 90 women and children were among those killed.
Say Israeli strikes killed nearly 500 people today, including nearly 36 children, and left more than 1,600 wounded.
This is a dramatic escalation. Will this spill into a full-on regional war, a full-on ground war? I think that depends on what Hezbollah does over the next several days. But we're certainly seeing an escalation here, and a war between Hezbollah and Israel is underway, without a doubt.
Understand that the people backing Hezbollah are in fact the Iranians. So this is a fight between good and evil, and between Israel and Iran.
A Hezbollah official says the militant group has entered a new stage of open-ended warfare against Israel.
Israel and Hezbollah are old enemies. Tonight they're in a new war, and the people of Lebanon are caught in the middle.
The strikes came in waves, one after another.
You can see smoke billowing into the air from multiple blasts. The Israeli military warning residents to immediately evacuate homes and other buildings where they say Hezbollah weapons are located.
Israel accuses Hezbollah of storing weaponry in neighborhoods and deliberately endangering civilians.
Now, starting this morning, the IDF has warned you to get out of harm's way. I urge you, take this warning seriously. Don't let Hezbollah endanger your lives and the lives of your loved ones. Don't let Hezbollah endanger Lebanon. Please, get out of harm's way now.
Southern Lebanon awoke to this. It looks like all-out war.
A special state of emergency has just been declared in Israel after days of intense fighting.
This follows an Israeli strike in southern Beirut Friday, which killed a top Hezbollah commander.
In this residential neighborhood in northern Israel, the peace is fleeting.
Hezbollah firing more rockets into Israel after already launching more than 150 over the weekend.
When we heard the explosions, I was a bit fearful, more than usual. We are used to it, but it seems really serious this time.
Fears of a wider war in the region now growing. The Pentagon says the U.S. is sending a small number of additional U.S. military personnel in light of the increased tension.
Tactically, this is a move upwards. This is an escalation of that conflict, which is regional and could become global. So really, this is a conflict with Iran.
It's interesting that Hassan Nasrallah, the head of Hezbollah, today was taunting Israel to invade. Go ahead, invade, because he knows that in many ways that would be a trap.
I think we're already in a wider war, and we have already been in a wider war for a year. There have been attempts to contain it. But as David was saying, once you start a war, and once you start exchanging fire with a group like Hezbollah, where does it end? Iran has already warned of, quote, dangerous consequences for what it called Israel's adventurism into Lebanon. Plus, as you mentioned, the West Bank, where there is a very large and growing problem with the Palestinians who are increasingly leaning toward Hamas, who feel that the settlers in that part of the country are taking advantage of this situation to steal Palestinian land. You have Iran that has attacked Israel. This could escalate very quickly into many fronts.
Derek, this conflict will certainly be a major topic at the UN General Assembly this week.
Absolutely. And on Thursday, I can tell you that Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu is set to speak here in New York. President Biden's scheduled to be here on Tuesday. The speech is happening at a precarious moment.
Israel's army chief of staff says it's targeting combat infrastructure that Hezbollah has been building for the past 20 years and preparing for the next phases. But the big question is, those next phases will include
on the doorstep of full-scale war between Israel and Lebanon, with strikes over 300 Hezbollah targets over the past few days, and Israel considering a full-scale invasion of Lebanon. And this comes as the Biden administration is now admitting that they want to de-escalate, but they're going to do it through escalating. They support the plan of de-escalation through escalation. What in the hell is going on right now in the Middle East? We are on the brink of a massive war. Dan Cohen from Uncaptured Media just returned from Israel and joins us now. Dan, great to see you. Welcome to the show. Hopefully you can help make sense of what's actually happening there right now. What are you hearing the latest from your sources on the ground there?
Well, it's the biggest escalation since this war, this regional war, began on October 7th of 2023, the largest escalation on Israel's northern front with Lebanon. So far today, I mean, the latest numbers are 274 deaths, more than in Lebanon, more than 1,000 wounded. That includes those deaths include 21 children, 39 women, 2 medics. They're images of ambulance targeted by the Israeli military. So it's very reminiscent of the early days of the war on Gaza following the October 7th attack. And I think we're going to see over at least the next days and possibly weeks, this escalation continue, and many, many more deaths of indiscriminate targeting by Israel. So when they say Hezbollah targets, it's the same sort of claims they made about Gaza, where they would just bomb any kind of target, whether that's a civilian house. And they've put out a cartoon, actually, another animation saying that houses in southern Lebanon have Hezbollah missiles inside them. If we think about the cartoon they put out in, I think, November of 2023, saying that there was a Hamas command center under Al-Shifa Hospital in Gaza. And then when they actually got down there, their whole proof of some kind of command center was they showed a calendar on the wall and said this is where they kept the hostages, but it was actually just a calendar. So the whole thing was a farce, and this is clearly a farce of what they're claiming to target. What they're actually implementing is something called the Dahiya Doctrine. This is an Israeli military strategy that was formalized in 2006 by then Israeli military chief of staff Gadi Eisenkot, who today is, would be considered some kind of leftist in Israel and is a politician. But basically the Dahiya Doctrine, named for the southern Beirut neighborhood of Dahiya, which is kind of a base of support for Hezbollah, is the logic is that you destroy the civilian infrastructure and population and target civilians in an effort to turn the civilian population against the resistance group. So the idea is you just kill as many Lebanese indiscriminately as possible, make their lives miserable, and then they'll turn against the resistance. Now, this is what I would say is typical colonial thinking. It's completely backwards, because as what happens is the more you destroy a country, and this is, we can see this throughout history, whether in Afghanistan or Vietnam or, many countries that have gone through foreign occupations and
the bombing
to
of Britain
liberate themselves
by the Nazis.
Right. People basically, they end up supporting the resistance. The support for the resistance hardens. And so I think that's, what we're going to see is as this Dahiya Doctrine is implemented.
The unimaginable happens. A nuclear weapon explodes over London. In this documentary, we explore the devastating consequences of this catastrophe. In the simulation, we will use a warhead with a yield of 750 kilotons. That's a pretty powerful charge. Some US and Russian ballistic missiles are capable of carrying up to 10 charges in a single missile. Upon detonation, a fireball as hot as the sun rapidly expands, reaching a radius of 950 meters. Anything trapped inside this fireball is instantly vaporized. In our simulation, The epicenter of the explosion is at Westminster. People within that radius won't even feel anything because the nerve impulse transmission speed is slower. Within 5 kilometers of the epicenter, the blast radius. City of London, Camden Town, Kensington, Brixton. These areas will receive the most destruction. Buildings will be destroyed and debris will fill the streets, creating extremely dangerous conditions for everyone in the vicinity. Given the population density in central London, the initial death toll could exceed 250,000 people and around 600,000 injured. Within a radius of 10 kilometers, the radiation will cause third-degree burns. Within that radius, anything that can burn will catch fire. Gas stations, automobiles, power substations, gas infrastructure. Explosive facilities will explode and amplify the effect of the devastation over a huge area, including areas from Camden to Greenwich and Islington to Wandsworth. According to various estimates, a further 450,000 people will die from burns, debris injuries, or radiation sickness, and over 1 million will be traumatized. Many of these injuries could prove fatal over the next days and weeks. Radiation sickness in particular will take lives days and weeks later. In time, about 100,000 more will be added to the death toll. Within an 18-kilometer radius of the blast, the shock wave will be enough to shatter windows, causing additional casualties to people who come to the windows when they see the nuclear blast. The shock wave will reach Hounslow, Edgware, and Enfield. Depending on the wind, the fallout could spread well beyond the immediate blast zone, potentially affecting areas up to 5 to 10 kilometers away, causing damage even in regions such as Essex or Surrey. The estimated casualties in the event of a 750 kiloton nuclear bomb exploding in London would be about 850,000 people dead and about 2 million injured. If the explosion were to occur on the ground rather than in the air, the fallout map would be greatly expanded, and the radioactive fallout could even reach Manchester, infecting people, land, and animals. The problem with a nuclear explosion in London is also that London is essentially not designed to survive such a disaster. 11 of London's 20 major hospitals would be within the blast. The remaining hospitals would be physically unable to cope with the number of victims. Many people are still alive under the rubble of the buildings, suffering burns, but no one will be able to help them. Since the creation of nuclear weapons less than 100 years ago, there have been more than 20 incidents where a nuclear-armed country was one step away from a nuclear catastrophe. You can easily find these statistics on Wikipedia. I will attach a link to this article in the description of the video. I want to call everyone to action. Nuclear weapons are a real threat to our future. Give this video a like and share it so that as many people as possible can learn about its consequences.